Welcome, everyone, to the Bristol Motor Speedway here in Thunder Valley, Tennessee. It's the first day of spring, and we have the weather to prove it. 160,000 fans just can't be wrong. This world's fastest half mile is the place to be this weekend, and we're excited here on Speed to kick off another full weekend of NASCAR coverage. Hello, everybody. I'm John Roberts. Here's what's coming up today from this world's fastest half mile. Sprint Cup practice is underway. Nationwide practice at 1:30, NASCAR live at 3:15. Then it's Cup qualifying at 3:30, nationwide final practice at 5, and Trackside at Bristol features Mark the Kid Martin and Carl Edwards. So now let's do our own version of the backflip and send it high above this half mile and join the Fox Race broadcast team for Sprint Cup practice.
Thanks, John, and hi, everybody, and welcome to Thunder Valley and Bristol Motor Speedway. Don't worry about those empty seats. They'll most all be full come Sunday, although tickets are available for the Food City 500. It's a chilly day here, 52 degrees, but it is bright and sunny. That's why all the fans are sitting in the unshaded portions of the grandstand for this opening round of practice for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. Hi, everybody. Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, Darrell Waltrip with you at Bristol. Once again, we're on camera. By the way, we're on camera. You knew that. The good news is we're at Bristol.
Yeah.
The bad news is, oh my gosh, we're at Bristol.
Yeah, you know what, folks? Just think about it like this. We go to the big 2.5 mile super speedways. How many cars do they start? 43. You come to a little bitty half mile racetrack, the smallest track on the circuit just about, and how many cars do we start? 43. Now, I'm not that great at math, but if you take that many cars and shrink them down and put them in that small of a circle, you're going to have a lot of trouble, Larry.
And I think that small circle is going to start as these cars have this hour-and-a-half practice session getting ready to qualify around 3 o'clock this afternoon, because I will almost guarantee you when these 45 cars go out to qualify, one of those two cars that does not make the show may only be about 3 to 4 tenths slower than the guy that actually sits on the pole. I mean, it's like a tight bunch of race cars here, especially come qualifying.
And I tell you the other thing, I think we're going to see a better race here than what we've seen the last year. And I tell you why. Cars are better, tires are better. And I think the guys that got these cars working a lot better, we're going to see a lot more racing than what we saw here last year.
It's hard to believe this is the second anniversary of the debut of this new car. We debuted it here 2 years ago, and it's amazing how far teams and Goodyear has come with this new car in 2 years.
All right, well, let's get right to the track with the reigning Sprint Cup champion, Jimmie Johnson. And yes, I have a sore throat and laryngitis. Save your emails.
I know how you feel, brother.
Maybe that's a good thing.
I know how you feel.
Maybe not.
You know, of all the tracks we go to, people ask me every week, who do you like this week? And going back to Jimmie Johnson, as we watch Kurt Busch, the guy that dominated Atlanta Motor Speedway. But I will guarantee you, when you think about Bristol Motor Speedway, you think of a track that Jimmie Johnson and 48 team, they've not had a tremendous amount of success at. I don't, and Jimmie, I almost tell you, I have not figured this racetrack out just yet.
Well, you were watching a fellow who has had a lot of success at this racetrack. Kurt Busch in the Blue Deuce, and he's coming off a big win that has really energized that Penske team. Dick Berggren has more.
Oh, a big win it was at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Kurt Busch led 234 laps, bounced it off the wall a couple of times just to get the absolute most speed out of it, and Kurt is at his best track. He won his first Sprint Cup race right here, and he has won a total of 5 times. Talked to him just before he got into the car. He said all they have to do is be able to translate the technology they had in Atlanta to Bristol, and they're going to be tough. Let's go to Matt Yoakum.
Dick, when we come to Thunder Valley, the Bristol Motor Speedway, this is a racetrack that's as close to where drivers cut their racing teeth. For Tony Stewart, it rekindles memories of Winchester Speedway or the Salem Speedway, places back in his old USAC days where he had so much success and went to victory lane. He's hoping that the past 3 spring races, in a way, do but don't repeat. He led almost 800 laps combined over the past 3 spring races, but failed to get to victory lane. Hoping to break through in a big way this weekend in his own car, and the win would be not only special for him, but for his spotter, Bob Jeffrey, high atop the spotter stand on the front stretch. This is Bob's home racetrack. Mike?
Thank you, Matt.
Bob's a great spotter. He spotted for Dale Jarrett for a long, long time. Matter of fact, he may be the first guy that I heard talk about tires as being feel-goods and a set of Eagles. And Bob always gave Dale some interesting feedback.
Casey Kane right now 4th on the speed chart behind Travis Kvapil, who is a go-or-go-home car, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Mark Martin.
You know, even though this is a 500-lap race, to me, a big part of that race starts today in qualifying. If you can qualify up near the front, besides having a great pit selection, you're almost able to set your pace. Darrell, I've got to believe a lot of the races you won here, you started up front, which helps you going into that 500-lap race.
You've got to find a place where you're comfortable. If that means, I was talking to Brad Keselowski this morning. This is 500 laps. It's not a 100-lapper. So if somebody is on your back bumper and he's wearing you out, let him go. Motion him by and fall in behind him, because you can't race here trying to look behind you. These straightaways are 650 feet long. You do not have time to look back. You do not have time to look at your gauges. You don't have time to talk to your crew chief. You just got to focus on your driving.
You know, there are a lot of 5/8 mile racetracks around the country. There are some with long straightaways and steeply banked turns. Thompson, Connecticut comes to mind. Very few of them are concrete, and none of them are completely surrounded by 165,000 seats that just reverberates all of the sound from these cars right back at the cars and the pit road. And Darrell, I've long heard the rumor and need you to confirm it, whether you can actually hear the fans when something happens here. Some drivers, I thought, had said you can just hear the fans over the roar of your own race car sometimes.
Only time I could ever hear them is when Earnhardt would pass me. It seemed like almost every time I could hear them.
That confirms it. Well, how about Ryan Newman? Let's see, where's Ryan on the chart right now?
He's our pole. You know, he's our track record holder. Right now he's 13th. Look for Ryan to qualify really well here. He just got to get some better race results.
Yeah, right now, Dave Blaney is fastest at a 15:59. Back in March of 2003, we were covering the qualifying session when Ryan Newman ran a sub-15-second lap, 14:90. Wow. He has 2 poles here total driving for that 12th pole.
But I think that's indicative right there already of how much faster these cars are going to be. When we were here last year, 16-second laps were common. High 15s, low 16s. And here we are, fast lap. Of course, Blaney's in qualifying trim. That's a go-or-go-homer. And so he's in qualifying trim. But I think we're going to see some fast laps here today.
Yeah, Dave Blaney and Travis Kvapil top the speed chart, and they have one agenda, and that is to get in the show. Opening round of NASCAR's Sprint Cup Series practice. Man, it's good to be back at Bristol. Speed's coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice is brought to you by Touch of Gray from Just for Men, by the Polaris XP sales event going on now until April 30th, and by Lazy Boy Furniture Galleries. Comfort, it's what we do.
I can use every one of those. Those are great sponsors.
We can hook you up.
How come every time you do that Just for Men thing, Larry looks at me the way he does? I don't get it.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Now, I just want you, if I seem a little jacked up today, it's not on Mountain Dew. It's just that I'm just happy to be here.
Yes, we all are. It's always great to get back to the short tracks. Joey Logano is in the top 20 right this minute. He is 16th fastest.
You know, Mike, they've got to step it up here this week, because when we leave Bristol and head to Martinsville, it's on the current 2009 owner points at the top 35 are locked in. And one thing we want to stress, that can move from week to week. Just because you're in the top 35 when you leave here, it doesn't mean you'll be there when you leave Martinsville. This car comes in here 33rd, only 44 points to the good right now.
We'll have a look at those points a little later on. We'll catch up to date on who is in the danger zone. But right now, Dick Berggren.
Well, another week, another racetrack. Last time we were in Atlanta Motor Speedway, and Dale Jr. struggled the whole time from lap 1 of practice until the race ended. A whole different story this time around. He is 3rd on the board. He only ran 2 laps and said the car is good. It turns real nice. They put a shock absorber on the right front that was much different than the one they had, and he's back out on the racetrack again. Junior Nation, you boys having a good day.
You know, the last 10 races, Dale Earnhardt Jr. has earned more points at this racetrack than anybody. 75 more than Harvick, 82 more than Biffle, 87 more than Kenseth, and 115 more than his teammate Jeff Gordon.
And over the last 8 races, he's averaged a 7.8 place finish. So he knows how to get around here.
You know, Mike, we talked about the 2-year anniversary of the debut of the car tomorrow. It's another big weekend that I don't think I've heard a lot of people talk about. It's the 30th anniversary of Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s first career win. He got his very first win here in the spring race of 1979, the same year he won the Rebestos Rookie of the Year. So 30 years ago, Dale Earnhardt Sr. got the first of those 76 wins here.
So you've been trying to remember that. I've been trying to forget it because he passed me to do it.
Here's Matt.
Clint Bowyer back on pit road looking to maintain his season strong start, especially here at Bristol. 2 out of the last 3 races he's finished 3rd. Bowyer's biggest issue thus far in practice, just too tight trying to get it to roll through the center of the corner now. His crew chief Shane Wilson made a change in the back the last time in. He said it got him about halfway the field that he really needs. Now they're going to make a change in the right front. But Bowyer pretty pleased about this 33 car so far, back with BB and T colors this weekend.
We mentioned it earlier. Let's have a look at the drivers like Travis Kvapil, who are in the danger zone. There's Kvapil, 39 going into this race. Now this is car owner points, and it determines who has to qualify and who does not. Now, we are still using last year's car owner points. This is the final race in which we'll do that. But you can see the drivers that are in jeopardy of having to go to Martinsville and make the field on time.
And I tell you, look at that 71 car of David Gilliland. You know, they're not that much to the good. But remember, that's a team that did not qualify for the Daytona 500. Now, when you miss a race, you do get some owner points. The driver doesn't get points, but that's a great job by that 71 car, and a couple of teams that were missing from that list that are in real good shape that's had to qualify on time these first 5 races. Tony Stewart in the 14th and A.J. Allmendinger in that 44 car.
Scott Speed is one of those who is going to have to pick it up. Now, he's had 16 laps around the racetrack this morning. He is 41st. All but 1 car have been on the racetrack so far.
But last time he was here in a truck, he sat on pole. So he knows how to get around here.
Oh, he'll be just fine. Here's a look at the Advanced Auto Parts Friday menu here on Speed. Basically, it's wall-to-wall NASCAR from now till 6 o'clock. Lots of on-track action for you here at Bristol. Then we're going to whip it up for an hour before Trackside at 7 o'clock. Who's on Trackside?
We have got a big show.
Oh, yeah.
Carl Edwards and Mark Martin.
Look at that. The 77 appears to have made contact
Right there.
Got loose getting in the corner.
with Jeff Bird's safer barrier. Messed up the paint.
I guess George was working late last night because you know, it rained for a while, so they couldn't. They repaint the wall every day here at Bristol. So if somebody gets in the wall, it will be pristine and white come the next morning.
Yep.
Unlike that race car right now.
They scrape it up all day. He paints it up all night. I guess you could say he paints the town.
Sam is 29th quickest right now at a 1587. We were talking about the 71 car. That's the 1 car, David Gilliland, that has not been out to practice as we've about 20 minutes into this session. Looks like they're about ready to head out on the racetrack.
Okay, push your button one more time.
That's the ignition button, the one that kills the ignition. That's why it won't crank. They think they've disarmed it. Or they've armed it.
That's that button on the steering wheel.
On the steering wheel, yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Kills power to the engine in case the throttle hangs.
So they'll continue to try to get him out there. Let's go to Matt.
Mike, while Hornish's crew works on their back bumper, right next door is Ryan Newman in the 39 machine looking for a good run this weekend. He, like a few others that you mentioned, in trouble in the points. Newman ran 18 laps so far, 23rd on the board. The previous time in, they made a front sway bar change. The last time Tony Gibson just called for a track bar change going down across the back, looking to pick up about a 10th. Not bad where they are right now, but if they pick up a 10th, Tony Gibson feels like they'll really have a strong race car. Looking good so far early on in the session, though.
Daryl, looks like one thing they're wrestling right now is they're bleeding the brakes, so he might be having a little bit of a brake problem on this 39 car. They've got the wheels off. They had the brake fluid out.
We got a lot of emails about this. Ryan Newman's name and about the American flag next to it. The flag, it looks like a reverse image. Quite a few of the troops over in the Middle East are wearing the flag that way on their right shoulder. Now, it used to be the flag had to be displayed in this direction at all times because the U.S. flag is never shown in retreat. But when it's on the right side of the car or on the right shoulder of the uniform, as you're walking forward, so is the flag. So other than the old Betsy Ross rules, and I get emails about this from folks who are in the military saying that doesn't look like the right way to display the flag. That is now an accepted way to display the U.S. flag on a right shoulder or on the right side, because the U.S. flag must always be moving forward. And there it is.
You know, I'm totally convinced. There's two sources of information.
Like I'm thinking.
Ask.com or Ask Mike Joy.
That may be the most valuable piece of information we get out all this whole weekend.
I doubt it, Daryl, but there's a couple of folks that email me pretty often about they don't like seeing the flag that way. I think Ganassi's cars at one time had it that way as well, and well, I researched it.
Yeah.
And there you are.
You are a wealth of knowledge, though.
Yes,
I'm going to say that.
And we had a weekend off, so God only knows what he'll come up with next.
If only some of it was, like really useful and meaningful,
Sounds good on TV, I think.
Moving on.
David Ruderman in this 00 car, pretty sporty so far. Fifth quickest. He's run a total of 14 laps.
Tell you, he's been the bright spot at Michael Waltrip Racing.
Boy, he has.
Has really done a whale of a job in this young season. Now Scott Riggs has bit the wall.
This car has been asking for it. He's been up the hill a number of times. Coming off the corner here, let's see. Down in turn one's where he got in on the straightaway.
Middle of the straightaway, about to start finish line.
Been having a lot of trouble with the car down here in turn one. But that's just a kiss off the wall.
Now, a lot of big news from that team this week.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, they've got this sponsorship on the car, Nexus Lighting, which is a form of LED lighting. And, I was down to Tommy Baldwin Racing earlier in the week, and Tommy says, things just keep coming together for us, and we're just going to keep moving forward.
Yeah, well, Gary.
How about, this little sponsorship right there.
That little Mark Martin sponsorship, and then Gary Bechtel signed on to be a partner with Tommy in this deal.
Before Gary came in, and he's a former owner in this series and well back, Tommy announced an initiative that small businesses could get a spot on the car for small money. And Mark Martin said, look, I got a couple car dealerships. Let me help you out a little bit, and maybe that'll encourage other people too. And look, this car is full.
I'll call Van Colley and see if DWstore.com can get a little room on there.
It would look good.
Yeah, it'd look good on there, wouldn't it?
Post.
Yeah.
And one thing, just one final thing on the 36 car, there was a lot of concern, and we really didn't have the answers from qualifying at Atlanta 2 weeks ago because he was fast in practice. They scuffed a piston in their engine while they were qualifying. That's the reason he ran so slow and did not make the show in Atlanta.
What's up with Rowdy, Dick?
Well, Kyle Busch right now, car number 18, is 18th on the chart, Mike, and they're not particularly happy with the car. Last fall, he was here, led 415 laps of the race, wound up finishing in the second spot, and Kyle in the car has just asked to look at some of the notes from last fall's race. I bet he has.
What's up with that paint job? Looks like diamond plate and tribal flames all over it. That's pretty wild.
It's a busy paint scheme, that's for sure.
He's the one that initially, he won the first race here in the COT car, and he had some really lovely things to say about it. Right. I never heard a winner talk so affectionately about his car.
Right.
Getting in, it felt better. I'm still, either too much bar in the front or wedge or something's going on.
And Mike, you hear that? I mean, this place is breathtaking. And that's one of the things you have to learn to do here, particularly when you get out there and start making long runs. Got to learn to breathe. You don't think about it, but you realize all of a sudden you go, I'm out of breath, and you got to learn to relax and breathe.
Reed Sorensen, 39th on the board. He has run 16 laps for Richard Petty Motorsports, Paralyzed Veterans of America, back on the car for this race.
This is one of those teams that came out of the box strong at Daytona with a good top 10 finish, but it has been dismal since they left the beach.
Just breathe.
Mark Martin has jumped up to second on the practice chart. So if George the Painter here at Bristol buys a brick for the Hall of Fame, will it be brick colored, or will they just repaint it white every time something happens?
Maybe half and half. Jeff Gordon right now in his 24 car, 15th quickest. He's run a total of 26 laps. The thing about it, Darrell, in an hour-and-a-half practice, you can almost work through a pretty good race setup and then have plenty of time to work on a qualifying setup. You can accomplish a lot here in an hour and a half.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a nice long practice, and these guys continue to make comments about no testing. One of the things, but this certainly wouldn't come into play here. I don't think they don't test here that much, but they are saying that they have to practice more in order to, because they don't have any testing data. And so a lot of the tracks you're going to, they're having to test a lot more, practice a lot more to get the car like they want it, where if they had testing data, they wouldn't have to.
You know, this is the first track that we've come to in 2009 where Goodyear has brought the exact same tire package that we raced here in 2008. The first 4 races, it was a different tire from what we raced at Daytona, Fontana, Las Vegas, and Atlanta.
Here's Robbie Gordon. Boy, he's been in the news all week long. Robbie ran, he's been running that off-road race series, and he's up in the top 3 in points. Got a second-place finish, but was protested by a competitor for cutting the course 4 miles. He supposedly found a different route through the desert, practiced it, and during the race took a 4-mile shortcut, allegedly. However, the appeal was heard and denied, and Robbie's second-place finish stands. He's got a new sponsor this week.
Yeah, what this is Spot, and that's a personal satellite messaging and emergency communication. It works off of a GPS, and Robbie has been affiliated with this Spot in his off-road racing, especially to stay in contact with the support team. You know, in areas obviously there's no cell service whatsoever.
Yeah, like that 4-mile stretch. No, it is.
Denny Hamlin is 18th on the chart in the FedEx number 11.
I mean, this is a guy, he has absolutely done everything here but go to victory lane. He has led laps. He's led with 2 to go, as he was doing about a year ago. He's had fuel pickup problems the last 2 spring races here at the end of the race.
He led like 275 laps for this race last year.
Well, look at that. I mean, he's at the top of all the categories when it comes to the 6 short track races we run.
Look at all those laps he's led.
Well, one of those would have substantially been the spring Richmond race last year, where he pretty much led about every single lap and then had that cut tire late in the race. You know, realistically, I know we're in Bristol, Tennessee, but we're right on the line. All 3 short tracks are in the state of Virginia, essentially, which is Denny Hamlin's home state, Richmond, Martinsville, and we're close enough to Virginia here.
Yeah, it's only a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
Clint Boyer, now when it comes to the Nationwide Series, he's the man to beat here, and we'll see Sunday if that success translates over to the Sprint Cup side.
You know, he had a rough start when he first came here. He finished 29th and 38th in his rookie year. But boy, has he improved since then. He's been 3rd twice and had a 7th and an 8th for 4 top 10 finish here in the last 4 races.
You know, Mike, Darrell and I were talking about qualifying here, and I talked to Clint's crew chief, Shane Wilson, and that's one thing, even though they've been strong in the races this year, their best qualifying effort this year has been 21st twice, and Shane said we really need to go to Bristol and focus on qualifying a little better than we've been qualifying.
There's Brian Vickers, who's now up to 6th on the chart in his Toyota. And now, with David Gilliland on track, all 45 cars have been logging laps. Gilliland right now is 36th. and he's going to need to find some speed if he wants to be one of the goers instead of one of the 2 go-homers.
And Larry's talking about qualifying well here, and of course there was a time when pitting on the back straightaway was, I mean, you just could not win from there. There was no way. NASCAR has tried. I don't know that they've helped it all that much, but I think they've helped it some, equalizing the front and the back pits. Now when the caution comes out, everybody comes in off turn 2, and if you're over here in pit 1 off of turn 1 entrance down here, you got to go all the way around the racetrack to get to your pit box. But even still, there's something about pitting on the back straightaway that makes you feel like you're not going to have a chance to win this race, even with them trying to equalize it up.
The way you can win it, when we had 2 pit roads, as Elliott Sadler did our first race here in 2001, is just don't come to pit road. Stay out.
Stay out.
Right. No stop, no problem.
Sometimes no pit stop is the best pit stop.
Hey, now what this is right here, this is the very last pit box on the back straightaway, at the end of the back straightaway. What's amazing, you pick your pits by how you qualify. In the top 4 guys, I can almost guarantee you standing here, they will pick what we call the 4 corners. This is that pit box we're talking about right there. Now, whoever sits on the pole will pick that exact pit box on the front straightaway, leaving. And then I guarantee you who qualifies 3rd and 4th, they'll pick this pit box back there just as you're coming in, and that same pit box at the beginning of the front straightaway. It's the 4 corners that those guys will jump on because you have an opening at least on one side of you at those 4 pit boxes. There's the other one. That's the very first pit box coming around. And this is what Darrell was talking about. Pit road is a continuation of the apron. You can even see the lines there on the apron. You've got to maintain 35 miles per hour from the time you enter pit road coming off turn 2 all the way to your exit at turn 1.
That is a long, slow ride.
But what really messes drivers up, we don't have that many green flag stops at Bristol, but they treat pit road differently under green flag stops. Under green flag stops, you simply enter and exit on your side of the racetrack, whichever pit road you're pitting on.
That's it. That's all. That's easy enough to remember, right?
Well,
yeah.
If you're sitting here. Dave Blaney continues to pace this practice session.
Now, if you're going to come to Bristol, you absolutely have to have a Friday night party. And we're going to have our Friday night party, NASCAR Trackside at Bristol. Joining Steve Burns, DW, Old Hollywood Hammond, and myself will be 2 of the big names in our sport, Carl Edwards and Mark Martin. That's NASCAR Trackside tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. NASCAR on Speed. Be there.
That's a pretty good contrast. Carl, who is as buff as they come, hard as a rock, and then Mark's 50 years old, and he's the same way. I mean, Mark is, I mean, he is strong as an ox. And there's a lot of power in those arms of his.
There's a look at Mark's number 5, second on the board. He's only run 6 laps. Where Carl's not too high up on the chart, 23rd right now after 16 laps. Spin, turn 1, and crash, Michael Waltrip.
Well, what's up with that?
Ouch.
Yeah, I thought I had it.
That's definitely going to be a backup car material there.
I'm fine.
Wow, let's see, get a replay here and see what happened. That was quick. It's coming off the corner, and the car gets loose. That's what he was saying. I thought I had it, and it just stepped out and just kept on going. He couldn't save it. Gets loose right there, which we see that all the time up off the corner, and then he goes down and nails that inside wall. Hard lick.
Now Michael was 27th quickest.
Yeah.
But it almost did look like he just about was able to drive out of it.
That's the thing, this car, I think that was one of the things about this car that if on the super speedway, seems like the air will straighten the car back out for them. The big fat sides, flat sides, and the wing. But on a short track, these things have always been loose up off the corner. You think back to all the years, the 2 years we've been watching them, they get real loose up off the corner, and when they do, they just lose traction.
And just to make sure that our viewers
Jack, get this car off this ramp.
Understand the rules, you can hear them talking about unloading a backup car. We still have about 50 minutes left in this practice. As long as Booty Barker and his crew, they can get this car out there, they've got plenty of time. get it out there and practice it. As long as when they present this car to inspection for qualifying, there's Booty Barker, the crew chief, as long as they have the race engine in that car, they can actually start this race where they qualify, because this has happened prior to qualifying.
Which is kind of weird to me. You can get out of car, but you can't change engines.
If this course happens after qualifying, then you have to go to the rear of the field.
Yeah, you're right. We have the one engine rule, but when the one engine is in the car that gets stuffed, I guess as long as it happens before qualifying, then whatever engine's in this backup car is considered the one engine.
John Darby's always told me the reason we do it that way, we feel like the team has paid enough penalty by losing a race car.
You know, that was the first ever All-Star race. And the $200,000 that you won was the largest payout in NASCAR history up to that point.
Mike, it's the most money I ever won in any race,
really?
Including the 1989 Daytona 500.
Wow.
It only paid $175,000 or $80,000 in 1989.
Just real quick, what I'm seeing here is, not to steal your thunder about that purse, but what I'm seeing is NASCAR talking to Booty Barker and Ron Otto, they're the car chief, which is like the assistant head coach to Booty Barker, about the whole inspection procedure of this backup car. NASCAR will work with them to try to help them get their backup car on the racetrack to get some laps with it.
Now, there's not a lot of room to work here in Bristol, so getting that car just off the hauler and getting it in position to be able to go to work on it is
there are 90.
Boy, that's tighter than the coach lot.
There are 90 haulers in there, let alone all the other support equipment. So there's just no room to move around in the garage at all. That's not even a garage. It's just a truck parking lot.
It's definitely a case of 50 pounds in a 10-pound bag down in that infield.
Still better than it was back in the day, isn't it?
This is true.
Park outside and tow all your stuff inside so you could run
in
the
a
race.
U-Haul.
The U-Haul dealer in town did a great business.
That's right.
Renting those little trucks so you could get your stuff into the infield. So much has changed, and most of it for the better.
Look at the haulers in there.
Thought we had another caution here at Bristol, but it was sideways Sam Hornish going up the hill in turn 2. He did not impact the wall, didn't even scrape it.
That turn 1 and 2 area is giving Sam a fit. Looks like the car kind of noses over getting in and just shoots up the hill with him.
Well, Michael Waltrip's problem was at the other end of the racetrack. Here's Matt.
And Michael Waltrip and the 55 team looking over what was their primary car, trying to get things taken out to swap over to their car to get ready for their qualifying setup. Michael, what happened from your vantage point?
First of all, Booty and those guys did a great job. The car was real loose at first, and they tightened it up, and we were, I thought, pretty close to where I needed to be, and I'd given it a little bit, tried a little bit harder than I had before, and it just snapped out from under me. I thought I had it hung onto, but finally it just wouldn't stick, and I hit the wall. So it's unfortunate for the Napa Toyota, but real proud of my guys. They were making great progress. Just race car drivers, or this one in particular, are a little mentally fragile. And when I saw how fast the 47 and the 00 were, I just wanted to go catch them. And I just got in a little bit of a hurry and set us back. Maybe we can catch back up to them by Sunday.
You're mentally fragile?
Occasionally.
Well, the process now is NASCAR and their typical routine of a situation like this, and Larry touched on it. They did a safety check of the backup car to help speed up getting the backup car out on the racetrack. They're going to swap things over, and then they're going to confer the benefit of having teammates. They're going to confer with their other team cars as far as qualifying setup, but they're going to try to get out and at least do a mock qualifying run.
Thanks, Matt.
Looks like they're taking the shocks and the spring package, something that they've already worked out on that car in the laps of practice they got, and they're going to put that incorporated into the backup car.
Yeah, the two team cars, Rudeman, he's 9th, and then Marcus Ambrose is like 16th, I think. So Michael he's over on the other side of the board. He's trying to catch up, trying a little bit too hard.
Dave Blaney is out for his second run. He is the fastest driver here. And
Little piece got loose on him getting into 3 there.
It's the unsponsored car. Now they have an affiliation with Michael Waltrip's group as well.
They made a change to that car, and he doesn't like it.
He's not liking something that's going on with that car. But right now he's the fastest. And the 2 slowest go homers right now is David Gilliland and Mayfield. Blaney's the fastest at a 15:40, and right now David Gilliland would not be in the show at a 15:89, so less than 5/10 of a second with a lot of practice still to go.
But the difference between Gilliland and Scott Riggs, who is the next go-homer up the board, Larry, is only 5/100ths of a second. So knockout qualifying this afternoon on speed is going to be exciting.
It's like I say every week, you put 4 tires on one of these things and tape her up and tell the driver you got to get her in the show. Never know where he's going to end up.
That's right.
And I mean that.
Dick
He may be the show.
He may be the show.
Dick?
Well, last year's winner was Jeff Burton. Right now he's out of his car talking to his crew chief, Scott Miller. They are pretty deep in the serial lineup right now, 32nd quick, but not much to worry about with that. After all, 2 years ago, Burton started 29th here, finished second to Kyle Busch, could have won the race, but he just wouldn't knock Kyle out of the way, content to finish second instead. They are right now getting the cars set up for a qualifying run. It's going to be here in the pit area for a fair while as they tape it off, readjust the weight distribution on this automobile, and see just how fast it will go.
You know, I'll bet Jeff Burton gets a good night's sleep. I mean, what Dick Bergman's talking about. Can you remember a time that Jeff Burton shoved somebody out of the way just to gain a spot?
No, but I'll give you a perfect example of he didn't take Kyle Busch out of the race. He comes back, and what happens? He doesn't lead but 2 laps of the race he won here last year. They were in overtime.
Right.
But he didn't have to do anything. He just sat back and watched. So what goes around comes around.
He sat back and watched his teammate Kevin Harvick get into Tony Stewart.
Oh, that too.
But I thought that was funny. He didn't lead any laps in the official 500 lap of the race. It was in the overtime that he actually led 2 laps.
Jeremy Mayfield has what I think is the best ever quote about Bristol. He said, "Racing here is like riding around in a clothes dryer for 3 hours, and by the time you're done, somebody's lost a sock or 2.
You know, Jeremy Mayfield is next to the slowest, but they have got some serious issues going on with this 29 car. Maybe Matt or Dick can find out, because not only is he the slowest car of the 45, but he's only run 4 laps. I just watched him then. He went out, and I don't even know if he ran a complete lap and came right back in.
Kind of put 100,000 shim in that right front.
100,000 shim at about 3.5 tenths. But they are definitely wrestling something with that car. There you see only 4 laps, and I don't think that's by design on this car at all.
No, they don't like to run a lot of laps in final practice, but they'll run as many laps as anybody in pre-qualifying practice. So something's amiss.
We're starting to see things change at the top of the chart. Mark Martin is now the fastest in that 5 car, and Greg Biffle in the 16 has jumped up the 2nd quickest.
Now, you know what's interesting about Bristol? Maybe unlike any other racetrack we go to, you go to any 1.5 mile super speedway, bigger racetracks, you can take the front springs out of every car and throw them out on the ground, and I guarantee they'd be within 50 pounds of each other. You can come here and you can have a car that's riding around here on a pair of 450-pound springs and running fast, sitting on bump stops. You can have another car right next to him with a 2,500-pound spring in the right front, running around here just as fast as the other guy is. It just all depends on your car and on your driver, and on just kind of what your direction is, what your philosophy is.
Now here's Joe Nemechek. Last week's practice show and the start of the race, we talked about the plight of the owner driver, and I wasn't singling out Joe. It's everybody that has to write the checks to run these race cars, whether they are in the driver's seat or not. When you're not sponsored, your road, your path down that road is a little different than the teams that come in here with the big checkbooks. And Joe's done an admirable job making the races and trying to run this car.
Well, we talk about all the young kids that their families hawk the farm and do everything they can to get them an opportunity. I was standing over this morning doing an interview, and Joe came across the track, and right behind him came his father and Martha, his mother. And I'm just sitting there thinking about the contrast between those that are trying to get kids in the sport and those that are in the sport and their family trying to help them stay in it. And what a contrast that is. And Joe's got his mom and dad right down there, part of the team.
Well, but the one thing we know for sure is that the purses do not cover the cost of running the race car, and it's just to have blank quarter panels and hood on that car. You just got to wonder, how long can this go? And hopefully that's a team that can find some sponsorship and and be able to run all day and run some races.
Yeah, he's qualified for every race with the exception of the Daytona 500. He qualified 19th in qualifying there, but because of the format, he didn't race his way in. And oh, by the way, he has an engineer by the name of Derek Finley, D-Dub.
Derek, my buddy.
Speed's coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice brought to you by Honda Generators. Honda, the power of choice. New name at the top of the board. Old double nothing, David Rudem, as Jeff Gordon is besieged by autograph seekers.
I still have to laugh every time I think about Ryan Newman at Daytona. Said he had the right name. He'll root a man right out of the way. There he is. Lucky dog.
He just finished that little practice qualifying run.
I tell you, he can gas it when it comes time to qualify. Not a bad racer either. He's been doing a great job this year.
You know, Darrell, I believe you're right. I don't know that we're going to touch that track record of Ryan Newman at a 1490, but I definitely believe this is going to be the fastest that this new car has ever qualified here at Bristol Motor Speedway. It's definitely flirting with that.
Yep.
Juan Pablo Montoya, number 42 in your program, number 7 on the speed chart.
Juan takes some interesting approaches to racing. There's a qualifying run I think he might be on. He goes into turn 3 and he goes way up high and then he shoots down the racetrack using some of that Formula One.
That's the road racer mentality, Darrell, is easy in, take the biggest possible arc of the corner and make all your speed coming off the corner instead of bury it in the corner and then see if it'll turn. You're right, it's just a completely different approach.
Style, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, Mike, he's 7th quickest.
Good lap. First Gus.
That definitely was, well, it's right there about the same.
Yeah.
The fastest lap he's run, but he did sit on the outside of the front row here in the fall of 2007 in his rookie season. I think it's a racetrack that he likes.
Yes, absolutely. Now he's an ex-Formula One driver. How about the new Formula One championship system? Guy who wins the most races wins the championship.
I got to tell you, there's fallacies in every system, but
Yep.
that's my favorite. You go out there, if it's all about winning, that's what you're supposed to do every weekend. It's not about accumulating points. I just never have agreed, not in a long time. I think you got to win, man. Winners are champions.
Well, it's been an interesting debate this week in just about every forum, in just about every facet of our sport, whether winning races or having season-long consistency is the mark of a champion.
And there's plenty of ways to decide if there was a tie. There's all kind of ways to determine ties. So, you know, I've heard all kind of arguments about, oh, well, it's supposed to be about consistency. No, it isn't. It's supposed to be about winning.
We can get into that a little deeper, but first, Dick Burton.
Well, Kevin Harvick's crew, Mike, is involved in a full thrash trying to prepare this car and get it so that it will turn in the middle of the corner. They just put an anti-roll bar in the front of this thing that's about the size of a professional wrestler's thigh. They are really, really looking for what they can do to get this thing to turn. That's the problem. Just won't turn in the middle.
Wow. Thanks, Dick. Thanks for chasing that down. The NASCAR point system was developed by Bill France Sr. and his publicist Bob Latford.
Right.
And the reason it occurred and was developed the way it was that France was concerned that some of his big stars were not coming to all the races. And so maybe to reduce the amount of deal money you'd have to pay some of those drivers to get them to show up, or to help the promoters who had light fields, they created a national championship system that rewarded consistency and finishing near the top every week. And the point system was such that if you skipped races, it would be very difficult to become the national champion. But today, with big sponsors like Lowe's on Jimmy Johnson's car, all the teams are contracted with sponsors are contracted to run all the races. So we no longer have the problem that Bill France Sr. and Jr. had when this point system was developed.
And that was in the 1970s, early 70s, that system was put into place. And we have come, that's a long time ago.
That's right.
And when we went to the chase format and changed things around the way we have over the last 5 years, I think it would have been a great time to adjust some of those other things that we probably have done for a long time.
And we can look at the point system, look at who wins races, see what might be different. One thing we should not do And I don't like to read when I see it is, well, under the old system, so-and-so would be the champion.
Yeah.
We're not racing under the old system. We're racing under the system we have in place. And it's how the teams react and adapt to the rules in place to do what they have to do that determines the champion. So you can't say under the old system this guy would have won, because nobody's racing to those rules, so they do things differently.
Yeah, I mean, we've all dealt with that. I mean, whether it's rule changes, you know, these guys have had to deal with car changes recently, the last 5-6 years, points, how the champion is determined over the last 5 or 6 years. So you're always adjusting, but the cream always rises to the top.
Right.
And that's the bottom line.
And just to clarify, it was Bill France Jr.
Yeah, Jr.,
not Bill Sr.
Who would ever thought this guy right here would not have won the championship last year? He won 8 races in the first 26 races, just going away, blowing the competition away. Got into those 10 chase races, and it just didn't come to fruition.
Right. But Carl would have. Carl would have won the championship. He had 9 wins. Yeah. And Carl had, in the chase, other than 2 bad races, he had the most dominant car.
8 top 3 finishes.
Yeah, and didn't win the championship.
And 2, you know, bottom whatever finishes.
The wreck at Talladega and the ignition box problem at Lowe's Motor Speedway.
Right. Let's get back down to the garage, and Matt with the driver who's second fastest.
And Mark Martin, he's been in the top 5 most of the session, 2-time winner here. What's the thing that you're seeing, the best part of the feel that you're getting back from this 5 car so far in practice?
Car's really turning well, and it's got good speed, so seems like it really follows the front tires real well.
You're counting down to Mark Martin Day at Mark Martin Ford, always a big fan favorite.
It's going to be awesome this year. We got, you know, great help out with my buddy Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Rick Hendrick. Every year keeps getting bigger. It's awesome. We have a great turnout, and we look forward to sharing some time with the fans.
The Friday of Easter weekend, always a big goings-on in Batesville, Arkansas.
You know, this is the first time that Mark has raced here in 2 years because of his limited schedule in 2007, 2008. He has not raced here since the fall of 2006.
So he didn't know the change in the track, and he hadn't run a COT here. So there's things that, I mean, and look where he is on the speed chart.
Yeah, second. Guess what you don't know not going to bother you much.
Now let's see. Is it Derek? You know who the engineer is on that car?
I know his first name's Derek.
Derek Stamen.
Okay.
Stamus. Derek Stamus. And I got he and Derek Finley confused 2 weeks ago. My apologies to that young man.
It's okay. They are, well, they were 20th quickest just a second ago. He's now jumped up to 10th for Jamie Mack. 10th fastest.
So you just mention his name on TV and the car immediately picks up. It's the magic of television.
Jamie and that group, I mean, they've been qualifying well. I mean, they qualified 3rd at Atlanta a couple of weeks ago.
I couldn't really hustle it. It wasn't way loose off. I just a little loose all the way through.
But I'm glad he didn't say free.
Yeah,
it's a little loose.
You get nothing for free here.
There he is. All right. Take those notes, buddy. Keep him straight.
Right.
That's Derek.
DW said.
Okay.
And don't let Derek Finley see him either.
Welcome back to Bristol. Hey, look who's down on the bottom of the Go Homers chart. Jeremy Mayfield and Tony Stewart is right now in danger of being one of the 2 go-home drivers. He has the 2nd slowest practice speed of that group.
But we know Tony will race because he gets the past championship provisionals.
Well,
so right now,
so much for suspense, huh?
It would be Jeremy Mayfield and Sterling Marlin. Here's the amazing thing. Remember what we talked about at the top of the show. Right now, David Ruderman is fastest at a 15:35. Sterling Marlin would not make this show at a 15:71. Now, Sterling Marlin would not make it at a 15:719. Scott Riggs would make it at a 15:712. It's a good thing they have that 3rd digit here.
Well, that's it. It's kind of back to my analogy at the beginning of the show. Little bitty circle. Times are a whole lot tighter. Hundreds.
David Gilliland is now 3rd of the Go-Homers after being late onto the track to practice. He has picked up nicely. And you know, this wasn't even a race team at the start of the season.
Yeah,
and Gilliland was a man with a contract without a ride at the start of the season. And look how nicely this has all come together.
I mean, I know at Daytona we talked a lot about Jeremy Mayfield. We talked a lot about Tommy Baldwin, and that's for a guy that says we don't say his name right somewhere in the Midwest. But anyhow, this group here, you're right, they did not come to fruition until late in the game. But they've done a good job of surrounding themselves with good resources. They get the engines from ECR. This car right here was a car that Martin Truex Jr. raced 11 times last year. So they've pollinated with good resources around this race team.
How are you supposed to pronounce?
I guess he was claiming I'd say Baldwin, and it's Bald-One. So that's for my buddy in the Midwest.
Baldwin?
Bald-One.
If you want one,
Baldwin.
If you want, Larry, I'll send him an email about the flags.
While y'all were talking about the bald one, Jimmy Johnson jumped to the top of the chart.
How about that? And Montoya right with him.
Right there with him.
As we look at Bobby Labonte, new sponsor for the 96 Academy Sporting Goods stores. And let's check with Dick Berggren about the man who is now fastest.
Well, Mike, it was about 4 years ago that when he came to Daytona, Jimmy Johnson said that he had just a few goals left in racing, one of which was to win at Daytona. He's done that. Win a road course. He's yet to do that. And win at Bristol. And this might be his weekend because he is P1, fastest car in the place. Chad Knaus pressed the button and told Jimmy, I think we got it. They do have a very, very fast race car.
15.321 seconds. He is the quickest lap of the day.
In his 14 career starts here, he has 2 top 5 finishes and 4 top 10s, talking about Jimmy Johnson in the 48 car.
Now, the Dinger with a 15.67 is 28th quickest. A.J. Allmendinger. Charter Communications Dodge, and he's in pretty good shape among the go-or-go-homers. He's about 3 up from where you'd be worried.
Oh, he'll
about making the show.
He'll use her up if he has to. I remember when he qualified that 10 car here, he was. No, I was Patrick Carpentier. I'm sorry, I was thinking about.
But I think we can check. I think this was about the first race a couple of years ago that A.J. Allmendinger actually qualified for here at Bristol.
That's right.
Getting the confirmation it was his first start, first time he qualified.
Speed Radio's weekend preview with Rob D'Amico every Friday on race day of Fox Sports Radio. NASCAR, ALMS, AMA, F1, MotoGP, and more. Speed personalities, some actual journalists, and SpeedTV.com racing experts. Download the podcast at iTunes or listen online at SpeedTV.com, keyword Speed Radio, or go on the website and get you a widget.
Or get you a tweeter.
Have you tweeted this weekend?
I did one. I tweeted once.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure though I'm pretty much a twit. I can't figure it out. Back off.
And from that, Kevin Harvick has again been in and out.
Bald one.
and back in. He still has yet to make a lap at speed as he and Todd Berrier continue to try to figure out what it is with that 29 car.
So let me explain something to you.
Well, let's check with Matt.
Catching up with Eric Almirola, a top 10 finish a year ago in this race on the left side of the board, currently 25th. What's the area of the car that you guys are working on now? A lot of changes going on.
We're just really switching over for qualifying trim. Our car is pretty good in race trim, we think. So we just made one qualifying run, and we're a little bit loose in, and we're a little bit tight in the middle. So we're trying to fix both those issues at once here, and we're going to take a big swing at it. And I think we're okay though.
All right, he's already taken one Q run, going to take a second. Remember, this team, different crew chiefs, same number, even new sponsor colors this week. Champion coming on board.
Sporting apparel manufacturer there for
Ryan Newman.
Almirola.
The track record holder just shot to the top of the board.
Newman. 15.398, fastest cat in town right now.
Newman.
Yeah, to no surprise.
But you know, back there at Almirola, Matt touched on it just briefly. He actually ran both races here last year and had good runs in both of them. 8th in the spring race, 13th in the August race.
Let's make that 15.318 the fastest lap for Ryan Newman. and it came on the last lap he ran. Hey, on the back of Almirola's car, I saw a Guitar Hero, which a lot of the fellows in the coach lot seem to play. And tonight, as part of Ford Fan Friday here at Bristol, there's going to be, I think Matt knows about this, a tournament between drivers and fans playing Guitar Hero and Rock Band and other things. I know Tony Stewart's involved, and Matt, who else is part of that?
Apparently Kevin Harvick is going to attempt to play guitar. He practiced over New Year's. He said he's pretty stout at it. Stewart's going to sit down and try to have a go at it at drums. They're also going to mix in some fans, so fans get a chance to play with the NASCAR stars. It should be a big night. Also, Mike, I know you're a big Wii fan, and they've got a big Wii fitness contest going on, tennis and boxing, which rumor has it that you may be participating. Any truth to that?
My son kicks my butt at
That's
Wii
what
tennis.
I did not want to put
Scott
you on the spot,
does,
but I know Scotty is just a master at it.
Thank you. It's in the hospitality area for Food City Race Night after on-track activities are completed here. Clint Boyer, Casey Kane, Elliott Sadler, A.J. Allmendinger in a Wii boxing tournament. Boyer and Sadler in one semifinal, and then they'll meet for the championship. And then the Rock Band deal with fans. And a lot of autographs and question and answer sessions from the stage. It begins at 6 o'clock p.m. this evening, so even if you're not coming out for practice, if you're in the area, come on over.
Well, a lot of drivers, when they do interviews, they always talk about Wii. Is that the Wii they're talking about?
As in, yeah, we had a good day today?
Yeah.
No, this is WII.
Roger.
It's a gaming console.
It's me.
Well, you're looking at Kevin Harvick talking to Todd Berrier, and look at the size of that coil spring.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Mike.
Kevin was laying under the car, looking up at the right front suspension, trying to see what he could figure.
And see, and now normally when we go to super speedways, they'd have a little bitty skinny, big, tall spring that they stuff in the right front. I guarantee you, that's a good 1,500 pound spring right there, possibly even a little bit more. But it just shows the different combinations you can run here. But I think what they're doing, I think they've been trying to ride on bump stops with the soft springs, and the car just won't take it. I think now they're going to throw what we would call a conventional setup at it and see how he likes that.
I tell you, they're running out of time, Darrell. They've got about 11 minutes if they want to get out there and try it. I guess if I was Todd Berrier right now, we know different drivers look for different things, but they got a teammate sitting over there, Clint Boyer, right now, that's 6th quickest in that 33 car.
But Darrell, I guess it's just magnified here. If different drivers want different things.
Too tight. We're going to pick up the throttle right in the middle.
Want different
450, 35, slight improvement. Let's come on in.
Different things in the car. Maybe it's just not so easy as taking one driver's setup and adapting and making another driver adapt to it.
If you have a disciplined driver and you say, look, back off early and pick it up quicker, then you don't need as much right front spring because you're not charging the corner. But if you got a Kevin Harvick and he likes to pour that thing down in there, and Larry, you know this, he's getting up on that right front spring, it's going to take a little different setup.
Yeah. Yeah, we would come here and have to run a lot more right front spring with Mike Skinner even than we did with Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah.
You just heard Jeff Gordon say too tight, needs to turn better, but he did jump up to 6th quickest on that little practice qualifying run with the 24 car.
30s. Look at all those 30s, Larry. Holy cow. 31, 32, 32, 34, 34, 35, 36, 38.
Yeah, the top 8 cars.
That's 8 drivers within a 1/10 of a second.
Well, within hundreds.
I'm sorry, within a
few hundreds of a second.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about Tony Stewart as we watched Matt Kenseth. Tony Stewart, who was way down the sheet, looks like Tony Stewart in that 14 car. They made a little practice qualifying run. They've jumped up to 20th quickest. Right now, the slowest go-homers would be Jeremy Mayfield, who's 44th, and Sterling Marlin in the 09, who's 40th.
Now, Stewart's teammate Ryan Newman is fastest, but continues to make laps trying to improve on that 15.318.
Newman takes that car. I watch him go. He goes down the back straightaway. Looks like he's doing about 150 miles an hour. And it's like a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He just pitches it into the corner in that big old banking, just like hitting a catcher's mitt. It catches that thing, and as soon as it does, he nails the throttle and he shoots out the other side.
That lap was a 15.40. and that was a 45, so he does not improve on that 31 that he ran the last time out, but he's still quickest.
I tell you something else you can't really appreciate if you're watching this at home on TV. It's how steep these banks are.
Yes.
I was out there this morning, and I tell you, you're at a 45-degree angle climbing up the bank. The banking here. It's steep. Doesn't look that steep, but it is.
Yeah, it's variable banking right there. You see 26 to 30 degrees. In other words, the more you go up the racetrack, when you start down at the bottom, it'll be 26 degrees. By the time you get to the top, it's up to 30 degrees. This is one of the changes they made when they resurfaced it a couple of years ago.
And I guess if at 0.533 miles, we'd have to call it a half mile. I thought we used to call it a 5/8, but
no, it's always been. It was actually a less than that. I think when they resurfaced it, maybe made it a teeny bit bigger somehow.
And you know, this was one of the first tracks that went to the full concrete surface. They did it back in 1992. This place used to be asphalt. We would come up here and the asphalt would just come up. They'd have to patch it every single race. And then they concreted this place in 1992. And that surface lasted, gosh, for about 15, 16 years. And they finally just had to redo it.
Yeah, I won that first race on the concrete, and it was unbelievable. The track, you know how concrete highways are.
Right.
That's the way this racetrack was. It had bumps, chatter bumps. You'd come off of turn 2, and there used to be a scoreboard over here in turn 3 and 4. You could not see it. Your eye, I mean, you'd go, bum, 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 bum. The car would just absolutely just chatter coming up out of the corner. And then they came in later on and ground it and made it a lot better. But this is, I walked around this morning, this thing is smooth as silk right now.
Ryan Newman, Jimmy Johnson, David Rudiman are the fastest three in practice so far.
Are they talking about me again?
Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice is brought to you by Toyota. For the latest Toyota racing information, visit toyotaracing.com. Toyota, moving forward. And by Honda Generators. Honda, the power of choice. David Rudiman back to the top of the board as we have a look at Paul Menard, who right now is 35th. He has run 35 laps in this session in his Yates Racing Ford. And we'll get a look at Elliott Sadler carrying the Best Buy colors this week. Insignia is a TV brand. It's the house brand at Best Buy. He was 15th fastest.
And I know Mike down in Franklin, Tennessee, that runs the Best Buy store there, is not listening because he's probably working. But I just want to say hello to him. He took care of DW and Jessica the other day on a nice new Sony TV. So I just wanted to thank him. I told him, I said, you know, y'all sponsor a car. And he said, oh, yeah, big race fan.
He may not be watching, but I bet he has a friend that's watching.
He might have.
Sam Hornish now 42nd quickest at a 1580, and here's Jeff Gordon, who is 7th fastest and just ran his quickest lap of the day.
Way tight.
Things just keeps getting tighter.
Yeah.
Go the other way.
But it keeps getting faster. Travis Kvapil, who has to time his way in, he is 21st, and he is smack right in the middle of the Gorgo home pack.
And I know they've got Golden Corral on the car again this week, but this sponsorship is running low on this car. This is a car that needs some sponsorship in place to continue racing this year. I'm talking about the 28 car.
Now Jeremy Mayfield needs to find some speed. 1589 is his best lap. The driver who is the last one to go in right now is Joe Nemechek at a 66, Mayfield at an 89.
And they qualified for the first two races at Daytona and Auto Club Speedway, but they've missed the last two. And there you see Michael Waltrip in the 55 out there in that backup car trying to get some laps. And again, since this happened before qualifying, as long as that's the engine they're going to race, they will be able to start this race where they're actually qualified.
Yeah, what you want to do now if you're Michael is just, okay, we don't need any more disasters. We can overcome this. We got our backup car out. We're on the track. Let's act like that didn't happen and get back to work.
John Andretti, 41st fastest, but he is in the show based on last year's owner points, top 35. So Andretti will make it. Now Todd Bodine is a go or go homer. And they have, what's Fred? They have Freds on the hood of that car. And I read that release, and I got to make some better notes on what Fred's is, but they do have a sponsor for that Gunselman entry. And there you see Todd 4 up from the bottom on the go or go home list, and 2 will go home.
And what's that difference? 1/1000th of a second. Who would go home and who would make it?
Former Bristol winner Elliott Sadler's just jumped into the top 5. He is 4th quickest, behind Rudeman, Newman, and Jimmy Johnson.
I'm liking a lot of things I'm seeing. I see some fast times, Rudeman 15:25, and I see rubber on the track. Remember about a year or so ago we came here and it's just dusty?
That's right. There was no rubber worked into the racetrack, but look at the corners
now we got a groove.
Yep, you see that nice black groove just of the right side tires. That should make things pretty good for qualifying. Let's have a look at fastest practice times. There they are, and a nice variety of cars up at the top of the list.
Well, just look at the names. Rudeman, there's Newman, and not just Jimmy Johnson, Elliott Sadler, Juan Pablo up there, Clint Boyer.
Talking about Clint Boyer's qualifying efforts this year, he'd love to see a top 10 qualifying effort.
Matt Kent's would like to get back on track here. You know, he hadn't led a lap here since 2006.
And he led a bunch that particular
race. He dominated, but he hadn't had much luck here lately. There's old David Rudeman.
Be interesting to see if it's a Rudeman-Newman battle for the pole.
And Buzzy's somewhere nearby, I bet you.
But I think the real battle, yeah, we'll watch the battle to see who sits on the pole, but I think the real battle will be who will make this race and who will not. And when you look right there, between Joe Nemechek and Sterling Martin, remember there's 45 cars here. I mentioned it right before we went to break. 1/1000th of a second separating those 2 cars.
We will have go or go home qualifying for you live on Speed, coverage at about 3:15 or 3:30 p.m. this afternoon. But coming up next will be the NASCAR Nationwide Series for their first of 2 practice sessions today. They qualify and race tomorrow. And then, of course, Sunday, the Cup race, Sprint Cup race, is on Fox. David Rudeman wins practice. We'll send you over to the speed stage, and we'll see you a little later with qualifying. Nationwide practice next.